Hi, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec Podcast, where I help you create teams worth leading. As always, I'm your host, Ben-Yosef, Tech Executive Consultant, and today our subject is bootstrapping leadership. And I'm not talking about bootstrapping as in taking VC money or bootstrapping. I'm talking about bootstrapping as in pulling yourself by the bootstraps. In this final episode that I'm recording in 2024, I thought of dedicating it to something that I think more of us need. And having talked to so many of my listeners and readers over the past year, I see a repeating theme, and that is we seem to think that our boss is responsible for our growth as CTOs, as VPs of engineering, as senior directors, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, that's most often not the case. Yeah, in an ideal world, just as you're in charge of the growth of the people reporting to you, you would see the same from the CEO in a startup. However, I will have to say that for 95% of the cases that I'm seeing, CEOs are too busy, don't have the tools themselves to help people in your caliber, and therefore you are often left to do things on your own. And if you're holding your breath, if you're just waiting for them to take care of you, to tell you, to give you feedback, if you're just waiting for them to spontaneously realize, you're gonna be short on breath. And that's because most often these people will not give you any real feedback unless things are very bad. And I see this repeatedly. There are so many times where I was engaged with a company and I saw that the CTO was hungry for feedback and felt that maybe this lack of communication, this lack of feedback meant that they were not doing okay. But when I talked to the CEO was ecstatic. They really loved the CTO. They thought things were going great and didn't realize that this barrier of missing feedback was so critical. The bad news are you're not going to get the support probably from your CEO just like that. The good news are you have so much agency and power here that you can ensure you keep growing. You can do it by yourself. You can pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. The first part is I want you to address your mindset. Don't be holding a grudge because you're waiting for the CEO to tell you what you're doing wrong. Don't assume that they're not doing something and that's not fine, so you are not being treated as you ought to be, that you're not getting something that you're supposed to get. Yes, in an ideal situation, but again, having seen so many companies, so many startups, I can tell you this is the wide majority of cases. You are not being mistreated. This is just the way things are, even if they're not ideal. And therefore, adjust your attitude. Take charge of your growth, just like any other person who has agency, who is senior, not just by title, but in role and actual responsibility and behavior would do. Don't wait for someone else to take care of you. There's this old Jewish saying, if not me, then who? You have to trust yourself. You have to rely on yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to do it all alone. Don't get me wrong. But it does mean that without you being the catalyst, being the propellant, it won't happen. So realize that that's your responsibility. And also, the good thing about it, it means that you are the only thing limiting your self-growth. If you put your mind to it, if you put your attention to it, the sky is the limit. So let's get to it. If you're wondering how to get started, first of all, I highly recommend starting with the basic coaching framework that I teach all of my clients that has been field tested for CTOs and anyone else in engineering organizations and product organizations and research organizations. It just works. And it boils down to having regular goals, be it like this quarterly quest, as Ali Abdul calls it, be it your 12-week year goal for the next quarter. So I am more aggressive, so sometimes I go for 2 months, whatever works for you. Set something that you want to work on right now, make that a goal, have tangible milestones that can help you see you're making progress and start working towards that. If you want to learn more about this coaching framework and how to implement it for yourself and for your people, I've got a free 20-something ebook about it, entirely free. I'll leave the link in the show notes so you can just get it. I'm that nice. I'm just asking, if you find it useful, send me an email. I always like hearing success stories. And start with this coaching framework to be in charge of yourself. You can decide what you want to work on, be it how you communicate with your peers, be it how you coach your people. In that ebook, I've got like a couple of pages with suggested self-growth goals. So you can choose something. If you don't have any ideas, get to it. If you upgrade yourself even a bit every 2 months, that compounds with time. Over a year, you've made a bunch of progress. Over 3 years in your role, you're going to make so much progress. You're going to be awesome. So, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The next best time is today. Get started. As I said, you cannot rely on your CEO, on your boss, to come to you proactively and tell you, hey, you know what you need? Here's some good feedback. You're probably going to hear it only when things are going wrong, and we don't want to wait that long because that means we've missed the train. Things are already so bad, we're getting reprimanded. I don't want to get that feedback then. It's like, getting your pizza delivered the day after you ordered it. By now, I've eaten something that tastes gross from the fridge, and I no longer need this, right? Nope. What you want is to be proactive in asking for this feedback. So go to the CEO and ask, how am I doing? Say, I would really like to hear your thoughts about how I'm doing, or about this specific project, about this specific issue. Ask for guidance about, again, a specific thing. Don't just say, I would like to get your mentoring, but say, I would like to get your help or your input about this matter, about how I handled this, about how I should, communicate with that VP of product, whatever it is. Be very specific and prescriptive in the type of help you want or in the type of feedback you're looking for. That will make it so much easier for the CEO to give you that feedback. Do the same with your direct subordinates. Ask them to tell you what they're thinking, how you're doing, what they think you're not doing as good as you ought to. I hope you have enough of a trusting relationship with them so that it will help, and just asking will make them speak up if they're not already doing it. However, yes, sometimes it's very hard for people to speak up and tell their bosses what they really think. That's when getting a third party might help, even though, when I do this as a coach, I don't just let people, put out a lot of negative feedback about someone and say, oh, but you cannot use my name or something like that. I might do a 360 where I ask a bunch of people what they think, and if I see things coming up from a bunch of people I know that, I can relay that feedback in general. But if there's one person who has a specific issue, I will tell them, you have to speak up about it. If we're not talking about something that needs to have HR involved, like someone behaving in an unethical way, I will ask that person to find a way to relay that feedback so we can work on it. And do that so you can grow. Next, decide how you will create a system, an environment for yourself to keep growing. Be it by joining all sorts of communities online and in Meet Space so you can meet some peers and see what they're doing. Have some friends. Join a mastermind group. Find people you can work with. Go to conferences. Go to meetups. Have this engagement. Read books. Read articles. Listen to podcasts like this one. Ensure that you're always learning, always trying to find what should be the next thing on your list. I'm not recommending that you have this kitchen sink approach where you constantly try everything you notice online. No, that's not going to work. I am recommending that you keep reading, keep being open to what's happening outside, so you can spot where something really resonates and you're like, yeah, this is what I want to focus on my next coaching framework interval for the next couple of months. That means you'll be able to spot the good opportunities, and also, you might pick up on some smaller day-to-day changes that don't require being dedicated to for a quarter. Terrific. Do that. Be constantly open and learning so you can get that. And also, when you're part of communities, when you go to meetups, you might spot opportunities to mentor someone who's, earlier on the path, someone who can get actually so much value from you. And I find that when we mentor people, when we coach people, it really helps our own growth. And it really helps you realize how much you've come, how farther you've come, because you can see all the things that bother that person who's, a year, 2, 5 earlier in their career, and you can really help them. And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember when that was an issue, it no longer is the case. So that is really helpful. You don't have to turn that into a career, but even having one person that you have coffee with every now and then and maybe answer some questions can really help you realize your own growth. So do that. Also, of course, if you want to really get a lot of momentum, grow very, very quickly, say if you're in a company that's growing fast, if you're looking for your next role to be a big jump from what you're currently doing, working with someone like myself will definitely help you. So sometimes getting a coach for 3 months, 6 months, I've got some clients working with me for 2 and 3 years in a row, depending on what you want, can really help you ensure that you're at the top of your game, that you're moving really fast, and can be a great thing to decide you're going to dedicate your 2025 to, but you don't have to do that. I've seen enough people grow by their own. It depends on you, depends on your budgeting, depends on your time, depends on how fast you need and want to grow. There's nothing wrong with doing things, the bit of the slower way, if that's what fits you right now, if that's what you prefer. I don't think that's wrong. I just think that if you feel like you're not making progress, if you've tried to do these things enough and still you feel stuck, getting some outside experience can really help, inject a bunch of momentum into it, help you start getting that flywheel turning. And then when you get the basics really going, you can keep going by yourself. But don't allow yourself to just remain, now that you've realized, oh, no one's going to coach me in the company, don't allow yourself to just remain stuck for another quarter or two, seeing no real progress. That's time you're never going to get back. And as I said, when we started, the agency, the ownership is on you. You're supposed to take care of yourself. You're supposed to ensure that you're getting that learning, that coaching, because otherwise no one's going to do that for you till it's going to be too late. And lastly, my tip is to constantly be mindful, be retrospective, and think about how things are going. So have these regular reviews every week. Have with you, I don't want to reach out so I don't hit the mic, but have with you some notebooks or use a notebook app constantly. I journal every day. I have 2 notebooks always in front of me, the small one for quick notes, the big one for journaling, and I write pages and pages of thoughts every day because it really helps me ensure that I'm on top of everything. I don't miss out when I notice a thought is recurring, when I get some feedback a few times, when I start feeling stressed, when I feel like I'm not doing enough, when I sense that for a few weeks now I haven't been happy enough or I've been stressed. All of these things are a lot easier to spot when you're journaling. And also, I journal all of my successes. Every time I see progress with a client, every time I get a nice even text in Slack about someone saying, that really worked, I keep screenshots of those. I save those things away. And in my journaling app, they just, they pop up. So literally this morning, I saw a very nice testimonial for someone from 3 years ago exactly, where that CEO said, I've started working with Aviv personally, and I couldn't believe the difference that made in my progress. So when you see that, it really helps you, realize your value and keep true on your track. So keep all the good stuff so they jump up at you and pop up again. Write down all the things bothering you so you can process it and work on it. And even if you don't have a coach, this work, this introspection can really help you find the opportunities for growth. Find where maybe you need to pick up a book on a subject. Find someone who's been there and just help you with that particular subject. Whatever it is, being there will ensure that you're pulling yourself by the bootstraps and making 2025 all that it can be and more. That's it. Happy New Year. Thank you for being a listener this year, and I'm hoping to see you again in 2025. I'll be here next week. Ciao.